Hello, and welcome to the Fintech Impact, a podcast where we analyze the macroeconomic effects of the fintech ecosystem in Colombia. I am Laura.
And I am Isa. Today, in our first episode, we'll explore the positive side of fintech and who is becoming a key driver of economic development in our country.
Okay, but first, what is fintech? The term stands for financial technology and refers to companies that deliver financial service through digital platforms in Colombia. Fintech has experienced exponential growth.
According to Colombia Fintech, there are more than 370 fintech companies currently operating in the country, offering services like digital wallets, credit platforms, and online payments.
Okay, our goal today is to examine how fintech growth is influencing Colombians' economic through financial inclusion, credit access, employment, innovation, and investment.
Let's start with financial inclusion. According to data Crédito and done by the third quarter of 2024, 75% of Colombian adults, that 33.2 million people had access some form of formal credit.
Yes, Isa, and thus a significant increase from 71% in 2023. Digital from platforms like Neki, Davi Plata, and Mobile have made it easier for people, especially those with traditional banking, access to manage their finances and apply for credit.
And this growth has macroeconomic effects. The financial and insurance sector contribute 5.4% to Colombia's GDP in 2023, according to the Central Bank of Colombia.
Fintech also helped reduce informality even though 75% of adults have access credit, only 34% have more than one financial product and 45% of the population doesn't actively use any financial product. That shows there is still room for their financial inclusion.
Another key benefit is the attraction of foreign investment. Colombian fintech like Adi, Bolt, and RappiPay have raised millions in venture capital, generate jobs, and promoting innovation.
Exactly, Isa. According to the Asobancaria, the fintech sector created over 12,000 direct jobs in Colombia, and with the rise of solutions like blockchain, instant loans, and digital payment apps, fintech is pushing the boundaries of what's possible in financial service.
Let's not forget the government's role. Policies like the regulator sandbox, the digital payments law, and support from the superintendency of finance that have allowed new fintech to operate with more flexibility will still under supervision.
Okay, guys, but the final conclusions in summary, fintech in Colombia is driven inclusion, in provide access to credit, encouraging innovation, attracting investment, and creating jobs. It's become a powerful tool for macroeconomic growth.
But not everything is perfect. In our next episode, we'll deep into the risks and downsides of fintech rapid expansion, issues like over indebtedness, weak regulation, and market instability.
Thanks for listening, and doesn't miss episode 2, The Dark Side of Fintech Risks, Imbalance and Consequence.
Welcome back to the Fintech Impact. I'm Isa.
And I am Laura. In our previous episode, we discussed the many ways fintech in helping Colombians' economic growth.
But today we're exploring a more critical perspective. What's happened when the fintech grow too fast? Let's talk about the risks and potential macroeconomic consequences.
Let's begin with over indebtedness. Many digital credit platforms approve loans without deep analysis of a user income or ability to repay.
Exactly. According to the Superintendencia Financiera, some authors have up to 8 simultaneous microloans that increase the risk of default and weakens household finance.
Okay. It also creates problem for the broader economy. Overconsumption driven by easy credit can generate indirect inflationary pressure, especially in vulnerable sectors.
Another concern is the rise of informal financial activity. Not all fintech companies are regulated properly, and this leads to unfair competition with traditional banks.
And while access to the credit had increased, 45% of Colombians still don't use any financial product actively, according to the World Bank and Banco de la República. This showed that the fintech revolution may not be as deep as it seems.
There's also a major regulatory gap. While Colombia has introduced a sandbox and digital payment laws, not all fintechs operate under clear supervision. This opens the door to fraud, data breaches, and a lack of consumer protection.
Okay, guys, and finally, we have to talk about foreign capital volatility. Many fintech startups depend on international investors if inversions withdraw quickly. It could affect the exchange rate and reduce long-term economic stability.
Innovation is essential, but so is stability. Without solid regulation and risk management, fintech can create macroeconomic distortions.
Okay, so the challenge is clear. We needed to balance fintech potential with policies that ensure security, transparency, and long-term sustainable.
To all our listeners, stay informed and critical. Fintech is changing everything, but we must understand both sides of the story.
Thanks for your use of the fintech impact